Picture this, it's 1817. A quiet farm in Robertson County, Tennessee. Inside a modest bedroom, a respected farmer named John Bell lies dying. His tongue is swollen beyond recognition. He can't speak. He can't swallow. His family surrounds his bed, watching helplessly as he convulses in agony. On the bedside table sits a small vial filled with dark liquid. No one knows where it came from. His son, desperate to understand what's happening, picks up the vial. Before anyone can stop him, he pours a few drops into the family cat's mouth. The cat immediately goes into violent convulsions. Within minutes, it's dead. Someone, or something, has poisoned John Bell. And according to every witness in that room, as John Bell takes his final, agonizing breath, an invisible presence laughs. This is the story of the Bell Witch, the only documented case in American history where a spirit is believed to have directly murdered a human being. The Bell family wasn't superstitious. They weren't prone to fantasy or hysteria. They were ordinary, respected members of their community, the kind of people you'd never expect to be at the center of America's most famous haunting. John Bell Sr. was a prosperous farmer who had moved from North Carolina to the Red River community in Tennessee back in 1804. He owned over 300 acres of prime farmland. He was a pillar of the local Baptist church, devout, honest, well-respected. He lived with his wife Lucy and their 9 children in a comfortable farmhouse. They were religious people, hardworking, well-liked by everyone who knew them. By all accounts, the Bells were just a normal family living a normal life in rural Tennessee. Until the summer of 1817, when their nightmare began. It started innocuously enough. John Bell was out inspecting his cornfield one afternoon when he saw an animal between the crop rows. It looked like a dog at first glance, but as he got closer, he realized something was terribly wrong with it. Its body was misshapen, too large, with proportions that didn't make sense. When Bell moved closer to get a better look, the creature simply vanished into thin air. He didn't tell anyone, probably just his eyes playing tricks on him in the afternoon heat. But a few days later, his sons came running back from the fields. They'd seen a bird sitting in a tree, massive, larger than any turkey they'd ever seen. When they raised their rifles to shoot it, the bird spread its wings and disappeared, as if it had never existed at all. Then came the sighting that really frightened them. The youngest Bell children were playing near an old oak tree when they saw a girl in a green dress swinging from the branches. They called out to her, asking who she was. The girl in green looked directly at them and vanished. These strange sightings continued for weeks. The family discussed them quietly among themselves, not wanting to appear foolish to their neighbors. They tried to rationalize what they were seeing, but rationalization became impossible when the thing, whatever it was, came inside their house. It started with sounds at night. The family would be lying in their beds when they'd hear knocking on the walls. Not gentle tapping, but loud, deliberate knocking. Then came scratching sounds, like fingernails dragging down the inside of the walls. Then the unmistakable sound of heavy chains being dragged across the wooden floors. John Bell was a practical man. He searched the house from top to bottom, multiple times. He found nothing. No explanation. No source for the sounds. But the sounds kept getting louder, more aggressive, more impossible to ignore. They would hear what sounded like rats gnawing on the wooden bedposts. Stones hitting the roof, heavy stones, thrown with force. The sound of furniture being dragged across rooms. But whenever they lit candles to investigate, everything was exactly where it should be. Nothing had moved. Nothing was out of place. Then the physical disturbances began. The children started complaining that their blankets were being pulled off their beds in the middle of the night. They would wake up shivering, their covers in piles at their feet, their pillows thrown across the room. They could feel invisible hands tugging at their bedclothes, but they couldn't see anything. John Bell made a decision. He was a respected man in the community. He didn't want people thinking his family was crazy, cursed, or possessed. He told everyone to keep quiet about what was happening. Don't tell the neighbors. Don't mention it at church. Maybe it would just go away. But this entity had other plans. And it was about to get much, much worse. For several months, the disturbances were limited to sounds and physical sensations. Then one night, something changed. The entity learned to speak. It started as whispers, faint, barely audible, impossible to make out. Then came whistling sounds, like someone trying to form words but not quite managing it. Then a weak, broken voice that grew stronger with each passing day. And then, finally, it was talking in full, clear sentences. The voice was unlike anything they'd ever heard. Sometimes it sounded female, sometimes male. Sometimes it spoke in a cultured, educated tone. Other times it was crude and vulgar. And this entity had a lot to say. At different times, it claimed to be different things. Sometimes it said it was the spirit of a Native American whose bones had been disturbed when the Bells built their farm. Other times it claimed to be a witch who had been buried on the property. Sometimes it said it was the ghost of someone who had hidden treasure on the land and wouldn't rest until it was found. But most often, it identified itself with one chilling phrase: "I am nothing more nor less than old Kate Batts witch." Kate Batts was a neighbor who had been involved in a bitter business dispute with John Bell years earlier. And this entity, this Bell Witch, as people started calling it, seemed to hate John Bell with a burning, unholy passion. But it didn't just hate him. It wanted to destroy him. The Bell Witch didn't just talk. It attacked. It would slap people, hard enough to leave bright red handprints on their faces. It would pull hair with such force that people would scream in pain. It would pinch and scratch, leaving marks that lasted for days. But the entity seemed particularly focused on one person, Betsy Bell, John's youngest daughter. She was only 12 years old when the attacks began. The things that happened to Betsy were horrifying. The entity would slap her so hard she would fall to the ground. It would pull her hair until she screamed for mercy. It would stick her with pins, leaving her covered in tiny puncture wounds that no one could explain. Witnesses described seeing Betsy's cheeks redden and swell as if being slapped by invisible hands, while she cried out in agony. They watched helplessly as her hair was pulled upward by something they couldn't see. They saw her body jerked around like a rag doll by forces beyond their comprehension. The family was terrified. They tried everything: prayer, Bible readings, having their minister come to bless the house. Nothing worked. If anything, the attacks got worse when they tried to fight back. John Bell still wanted to keep it secret, but the Bell Witch had other ideas. It wanted the world to know about it. The Bell Witch wanted attention, and it was about to get it. It started following family members to church on Sundays. Right in the middle of sermons, the invisible entity would start singing, loud, mocking hymns that echoed through the church. It would laugh at inappropriate moments. It would make crude comments that shocked the conservative congregation. Then it started visiting the neighbors' houses. It would knock on their doors, and when they answered, an invisible voice would introduce itself: "I am the Bell Witch." Then it would proceed to discuss the Bell family's most private affairs, things that no one outside the family should have known. The entity seemed to have supernatural knowledge. It could quote scripture perfectly, chapter and verse, never making a single mistake. It could sing hymns in perfect harmony, sometimes singing all four parts simultaneously. It could mimic people's voices so accurately that family members couldn't tell the difference between the witch's imitation and the real person. Word spread quickly through the community, then to the surrounding counties, then across Tennessee. People came from miles away to witness the phenomenon. They would gather at the Bell farm, hoping to hear the witch speak or see evidence of its presence. The entity seemed to enjoy the attention. It would perform for crowds, answering questions, demonstrating its abilities, and always expressing its hatred for John Bell. The Bell farm had become the most famous haunted location in America. And the entity wasn't finished yet. The attacks on John Bell grew worse. The entity would slap him, make it difficult for him to eat, cause his tongue to swell. He began having seizures, violent episodes where his body would jerk uncontrollably and his face would contort in pain. Doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong with him, but John Bell was clearly dying. In December 1820, John Bell fell into a stupor from which he never fully recovered. He lay in his bed, barely conscious, unable to speak or swallow. That's when someone found the vial. A small container filled with dark, smoky liquid appeared on his bedside table. No one knew where it came from. No one had brought it into the room. John Bell's son picked it up and, in a moment of desperate curiosity, gave a few drops to the family cat. The cat immediately went into violent convulsions and died within minutes. They tried to find more of the liquid to have it analyzed, but when they went back to the bedside table, the vial had disappeared. Vanished, just like everything else associated with the entity. John Bell died on December 20th, 1820, and according to every witness present, as he took his last breath, an invisible voice filled the room with triumphant, mocking laughter. The next day, at John Bell's funeral, the witch's voice could be heard singing drinking songs as they lowered his coffin into the ground. After John Bell's death, the activity began to subside. The entity told the family it would leave for 7 years, and it did. It returned briefly in 1828, just as it promised, then disappeared for good. Over 200 years have passed, and people still debate what really happened on that farm in Tennessee. Was it real? Was it mass hysteria? Some kind of collective delusion? A hoax perpetrated by someone with a grudge? Or was there truly something evil, something beyond our understanding, that haunted the Bell family for those 4 terrible years? We may never know the truth, but one fact remains undisputed. The Bell Witch is the only case in American history where a spirit is officially believed to have directly caused a person's death. The only documented case of supernatural murder. And in the quiet farmlands of Robertson County, Tennessee, some say the Bell Witch is still there, waiting.